Good morning, everybody. I hope all of you are doing safe. So, couple of weeks back, we had our first TouchMix training session where we spoke about the whole hardware and the functionality of the mixer. We looked at some of the features which are unique to TouchMix series of mixers. And today, what we are going to do is look at have a quick recap of what we spoke in the first session. Kushbu, do you want to go on?
Yes, I did already.
Okay. So while you guys answer the questions on the poll on your screen, let me go through what we're going to look at today. First, we will have a small recap of what we spoke in the older training, the earlier training. We're gonna look at how the feedback anti-feedback suppressor works in the auto and manual mode. We will look at how the room tuning wizard helps you get better sound in indoor venues. We look at how we do the remote connectivity of wireless devices like iOS, Android, etc. And we are also go a little deep into the recording procedures, the different formats, etc. And then we of course have some Q&A as well. All right.
Right.
Okay, so you can see the full view of the TouchMix. So like a quick recap, there are these gain knobs for all the 24 mic line inputs that we have on our TouchMix 30 Pro. Couple of navigation buttons on the right hand side. There's a home button, there's a menu button, there is a record play button, there's an anti-feedback button. There's a screen on which we're going to concentrate more after this. And then there are user buttons, user-defined buttons, U1, U2, U3, U4, up till U8. There are some shortcuts here. Prakash, can we have the screen view?
Sure, Anish.
Thank you. So I hope all of you can see that very well. So a quick recap of what we saw the other day. On top, you have all your inputs and input routing options, and on the left-hand side from top to bottom, you have all your output sections with main mix and all the auxiliary outputs. On the main page, you've got bank of 8 faders, and you can flip through the pages on the top to toggle between all the 24 or 32 channels. Then you've got stereo inputs. You have your FX master channels. There are 6 FX engines in the TouchMix 30 Pro. And then you've got auxiliary outputs. You've got the subgroups, and you've got the DCA groups on the that side. If you're in the input page or an output page, when you touch the name of the channel, you get to the detailed view of the channel. That channel, so the first window is overview, where you see an overview in a smaller way of everything. That's your EQ, compressor, gates, FX sends, auxiliary sends, etc. You've got things like polarity, inverse, delay, etc. Then you go to flip through the top panel where you have an EQ, full view of the EQ, compressor, the gate, and all separately. You have the auxiliary sends also in this for that particular channel. You've got presets where you load the presets. When you select these instrument presets, basically it sort of there is a predefined equalization, compressor settings, etc., which is made as presets in studio environment that is loaded into it. So when you load these presets, you are already 80% of the time you're set with your instrument, tuning the instrument. You can save these, you can recall these presets, you can make further changes if you would like for particular venues, and then you can save them as your user-defined presets by selecting the user option. You can store it on the mixer itself, or you can store it on a USB drive as well. In the setup screen is where you can change your name of the channel. You've got the link so that you can link any 2 consecutive channels to make it a stereo pair. You've got phantom power, you've got delays, and you have the assignments whether you want to send that channel to main LR or any of the subgroups or DCS or mute groups, etc. So these are some of the things. On EQ page, I want to emphasize that you have a few options to toggle between. So there is an RTA button, so which will show you the RTA of that particular channel. You can assign this RTA on the input as well as the output. You can put it off if you don't need it. There is a simple board button. If you click on that, it changes the whole EQ settings to a simple single knob control kind of a thing. So for beginners, it's very useful because in advanced mode, you've got gain, Q factor, frequency and all that. So for beginners, if they don't understand how to deal with those so many controls, then you can go to simple mode. That applies to even compressor, gate, whatever processing you have in this. So you can toggle between simple and advanced mode from here. The auxiliary sends for all your channels would be can be in multiple ways. If you go to any of the input section and go to auxis, this is your input, that particular channel going into multiple auxiliary outputs. So you can touch and change with the encoder. The other way to do is that you go to a particular auxiliary output, and then you can use these faders using all your inputs to send all the inputs individually to all the auxiliaries. Otherwise, we also have a dedicated auxiliary button, hard button on the panel. So you press that and it shows you a matrix of all the inputs to all the auxiliary outputs as well. So this is where you can just toggle between the input pages from 1 to 8, 9 to 16, and then you can send all these channels to auxiliary outputs, which is, there are like 14 auxiliary outputs on this TouchMix 30 Pro. There is how to route FX from this mixer is that you go to the channel option where you want to enable the FX, and you do the send. So there are 6 FX engines. So on that particular channel, this will become your send FX send. So the channel is sent to the FX engine, and then the FX returns will be on the FX masters page. So this is where you send it to the output. So if you're on the main page, on the top left corner, that means you're sending these effects to the main master. And if you've selected any of the auxiliary outputs, then that means that you're sending these FX returns to the auxiliary outputs. That means sending it to the stage monitors for the artist, etc. There is one of these unique features called custom bank. So you can customize the bank. So by default, you've got these 3 flip pages for your inputs and then some pages for your outputs, which shows 1 to 8, 9 to 16, etc. But if you want to use customize your fader banks, then you can go to custom banks. How do you do that is go to menu, go to custom banks, and then select the bank. And on each channel, you can select any of the inputs or outputs or effects channels to customize. So let's say I want the first 4 channels to be as it is on the on my first bag, but on channel 5 onwards, maybe I want to have some other auxiliary outputs. Maybe on channel 8, I want to have an FX channel, let's say FX1. On maybe channel 7, I want to have the two-track playback, which is coming from either the DAW software or a PC, or maybe from the pen drive. That way I can customize all these. So go to each and every channel and select what you want on that particular channel. And then when you go back, if you click on the custom bank, when it turns green, it means custom bank is enabled. So it will show you the customized bank, and you can toggle between the custom bank and the normal visual, because you can turn off the custom bank and it comes back to the normal view of the channels. When you go to menu, you have all these options to further go to scenes. If you want to save or recall any of the scenes, you can save or recall scenes into the mixer or on a USB stick if you have one connected. If you have saved something on the mixer, you can copy it also to the mixer. These are the ones which are on the mixer, so you select that and copy to USB, so that goes into USB. Or if you have multiple sessions for, let's say, different bands or different kind of applications stored in your USB, you can do that vice versa. So you can copy it from the USB to your mixer also by touching on this. In the menu, then you also have the mixer setup, where you can select if your cue mode is in solo in place, PFL, AFL. Sample rate is one of the important things when what we look at the recording that we will be doing. So when you connect this to a PC on a DAW software recording or playback, then selecting between these 2 options becomes important. Then there are options like user button. So you can assign all these user buttons to different functions. This is where you change from. So for now, if you, I think they can't see it, but user 1 button I have assigned to so that I can toggle the track between tracking all the channels at once. So we will look at that in detail when we go into the recording section of this. Remote control is where you add the wireless devices and give access to multiple devices connected to the same device. This mixer supports up to 12 devices being simultaneously connected. Network is where you select a wired or a wireless network so that your wireless iOS or Android devices can be connected to the TouchMix 30 and you can control it. And security is for locking purpose. So if you're giving this mixers to the installed sound venues like in auditoriums and you want certain security features at different levels, there are 4 different levels of security which you can enable, giving 4 different levels of access in the mixer. All right, so let's move on to the next topic for today. The anti-feedback suppressor. So there are feedback suppressors available on all outputs. That is one dedicated for the master, and then there are 14 on all the 14 auxiliary outputs. So they all have different filters independent of each other. Each processor of them has got 12 filters. So this is how it looks. So there are 12 filters which you can see on this, and each filter has certain frequency adjustments and the cut as in how much cut you want. There is also common control called filter depth and filter Q. That is how much deep you want to actually cut it, and then the limit of the cut which you apply through the cut knob. And the filter Q defines how narrow or broad your filters has to be. Typically, it should be kept in the middle, which is there already in the default. In this, there are 2 ways of doing feedback control. One is a manual kill. So while during the show, if there's a feedback, it will detect, and you can just press manual kill here, and it will kill the feedback. Good thing is, unlike a graphic EQ where there are fixed frequencies between 20 hertz or 20 kilohertz, which you have to cut, and here it will show you frequencies which are in between also. Like in graphic EQ, you have an option of 63 and 80 hertz. So if there's a feedback at, let's say, about 75, then you don't have that option in a graphic EQ. So eventually you'll end up cutting either 63 or 80, or to experiment which one to cut, or sometimes even both, to actually control that particular frequency. But in this, it will detect the exact frequency in decimal points also, and then it will show you what frequency it is. And the moment you do a manual kill, it will kill the feedback. Let's have a look at how it works. So I have a mic here. Check, check, check. And I have a speaker here connected like a floor monitor. So I'm going to raise the levels of the master, create some feedback, and we'll see how it kills. Check, 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 check. 1, 1, 1, 1. Yeah. Check, check. 1, 1. Yeah, so it was as quick as that. Check, check. 1, 1, 1. Yeah. So you can see that I could increase the gain and cut the frequency. I don't have to judge what frequency it is. I don't have to experiment with multiple frequencies to be able to cut it right. The moment the feedback is happening, it shows the frequency, and you just touch the manual kill and it instantly kills it. This is obviously a savior while during the show when you get feedbacks. But also you can kind of avoid this if you do the automatic process of killing the feedback. So before the show starts, when you do a setup, you set up your main PA, you set up all the stage monitors, your microphones with all the fixed positions and everything. And there is this procedure called ringing out the system, which means intentionally creating feedback into the system and then eliminating that. So that can also be done in this. There is a feedback wizard for that. So let me just first restart all the filters that I have here. And then I go to the feedback wizard. Let me unmute the mic. So There's already feedback. So I go to the, I select which output I'm gonna ring out first. So I'm on the main page. So I go to main page, press the feedback button on this, go to feedback wizard, and it shows you a couple of instructions to follow. It's about placing the right mics, check all your outputs are mute first. Basically, right now I'm only connected to a master output, but the thing is that since we have these processors available on all the outputs individually, you can actually create, eliminate feedback from individual outputs. The advantage is that if you had a common filter, then the filter will apply to all the outputs, regardless of there's a feedback or not. So here, having different processors is an advantage that you would, different speakers will give you different frequencies of feedback. So based on room acoustics as well as the placement of the microphones which are far away from certain speakers will not give feedback. So, but if it was a common filter, then it would cut that also. It will eventually kind of spoil the tonal quality of all the outputs. So that's the advantage of having different feedback suppressor on all outputs. So typically the instruction says that you have to mute all the outputs and unmute one by one, whichever you're trying to work on channel. So here I'm on channel 1, main channel, and everything else is mute. So I just press the start button. So what happens is it will start automatically moving the fader up. If you can see the master, look at the master fader and it will increase the levels. So it's kind of not detecting any more frequency. So it will either stop the moment there are no feedbacks, or it will stop once all the 12 filters are already engaged, and then that time it will stop. If you don't want it to follow the entire procedure until 12 filters, you can either pause or exit in between. So if you exit, whatever it has done, it will stay there and it will not continue with the process. So right now you can see that it's automatically cut some of the frequencies. How it works is that it automatically increases the master output of that particular output, and it creates a feedback and cuts those frequencies. The advantage is that typically when you're doing a sound setup, you have all your faders, output inputs all at the unity gain, but you want that headroom before feedback, because there are a lot of times when between the show, sometimes you have to increase the master levels, or sometimes you have to increase certain channels gain also at in between. So having this headroom of whatever level the master fader goes up while detecting the feedback, that much of headroom you have. Sometimes it can go almost up to 10 dB. So you have like a 10 dB headroom in your system without feedback, basically a clean sound without feedback. And at any point of time, if you want to reset and restart, there's a reset button here. So that will reset all the filters that you've engaged. Or you can just bypass it by clicking this filter in and out button also temporarily if you want to. So that's the feedback suppressor thing, very useful. As you can see, I did not do anything while going through the wizard. It automatically cut down all the feedback. So it becomes very, for the beginner engineers, it becomes very easy to have a clean sound. And for professional engineers, it saves a lot of time rather than using graphic EQ on all the outputs individually and manually cutting the feedbacks as well. Next, we will look at the tuning wizard. So this mixer has RTA built into it. You can connect a measurement mic into the talkback mic input of the mixer. There's a dedicated talkback input, which has a phantom power also enabled, can be engaged. So it'll be possible for you to tune the room indoor venue with different possibilities. So let's look at what it is, how it works. One thing about the feedback suppressor that we saw is that it should always be engaged before using an auto mix feature of this mixer. That'll always be good because auto mix will work in a better way. We go to the wizard. There are three wizards. One is FX wizard, which basically helps you select the right wizard for the kind of instrument you have selected on your input channel. The gain wizard, which helps you avoid clipping in your gain during the show. And tuning wizard is what we're talking about here. So you touch on tuning wizard. So I have a measurement mic connected to my system, which is connected to the talkback mic input. And then I can select what I want to tune. So if on the screen, if you see, there are all the auxiliary outputs and there is a main LR. So you can tune all of them separately. Of course, your mic placement becomes important, but good thing is that when you start the tuning procedure, it shows you where exactly to place your microphones as well. Now, there are a couple of methods to do measurements. Low precision is like a real quick thing, just with a single placement of the measurement mic, and that hardly takes a couple of minutes to do that. And when you go higher, like medium or higher precision, it shows you more and more multiple positions on the microphones to be able to have better precision on your tuning system. So you select, let's say, let me start with the low precision, which is a quick single kind of a thing. So I press next. So here you can see that there is an image of the room, and this is an approximate location of your microphones, measurement microphone that they suggest. So center of the length, depth, and center of the room, width-wise also. That is where you keep your measurement mic. If your measurement mic is a condenser mic, then you put the phantom power on, and then you begin by touching this. It will automatically play pink noise, and it will measure it. So if I press, and that's it. That was quick. So it played pink noise for a while. It did some measurements, and now to finish it, I have to select some of these options. I can have the settings of the system as flat response. I can have it like a graph for a graph which is recommended more for a live performance, or I can just keep existing, which means no change would take place. So let's say if I select the flat one, once I finish it, it will take me to the graphic EQ page where it has applied it. So here the text reads that the fader, if it is in the gray color, it is the original position of them, but the ones which is indicated by blue, that means that is the one which is has been used for the tuning of the room. So let me hit finish here. And here there's an option called tuning in and out. So it was out, so it's not showing me anything. I just put it in, and I can see a few of the frequencies being boosted or cut with this blue indicator. So that is what the room tuning has done. So that's a result. If you want to bypass it, you can still bypass it from here. You can actually toggle it on and off and compare what improvements has the room tuning wizard made to your room as well. I can reset it if I don't want it at all. Let me also go back to the tuning wizard, and let's do another tuning with medium precision that would include two different positions of the microphones. So again, I select the output which I want to tune. I select medium precision. I go to next. The phantom power is already on. Now it will show me two different positions in the picture. So I do begin first, and it will follow the same procedure of what it did before. earlier it showed a position which was in the center, and now it is showing me a position in the center at the backmost part of the room. So I'm gonna ask somebody to move the mic. Yes. So we have changed the measurement microphone position, and I do the measure again. And that's it. So now we have taken two measurements at two different locations suggested with the image that was there on the screen. Thank you, Deepak sir, for that. And then again, we select between flat and live. Let's say this time I want to have the system tuned for live performance. So I select live and I finish it. So now you can see that there are more number of filter, the EQ graphs that has been engaged, all the ones which are indicated by blue separately. So that's how the tuning wizard works. There is also a very high precision method which has multiple, I think it has like almost 4 different mic positions. So you can have a higher precision tuning also. A very basic mic measurement mic also would work well with it. And that's about it. The next up, what we're going to show today is the remote connectivity. So as I said earlier, you can connect up to 12 different wireless devices to the TouchMix 30 Pro. You need to have a Wi-Fi connectivity, so that can be through a wireless router connected to the Ethernet port of the system, or you can have a Wi-Fi USB dongle connected to the USB. So basically, you go to menu first. You have to select the network. So whether based on wired or wireless, you have a establish a connection. It would show connected here, and you have to connect your device to the same Wi-Fi basically. Can we share the screen?
It's already there.
Or, you guys are fast. So you can see we have connected an iPad right now. On top right corner, it says QSC TM30 Pro, and it's showing green color. That means it is connected. The way we did it is simple. You go to the Wi-Fi settings of the devices, you connect to the same Wi-Fi network where the TouchMix 30 Pro is connected, and then it will automatically establish a connection with the TouchMix 30 Pro. It will show TouchMix 30 Pro being available as a device. This is through an app which is downloadable for free from the Play Store, or what is that for iOS?
Apple.
Anyway, so from the Play Store, you can download TouchMix 30 Pro. There is a different app for TouchMix 16 and 18, two different apps, but they are free. You can download, even if you don't have a mixer, it's a good idea that you can download them, because you can still learn the features and how to do things in the mixer itself in an offline mode as well. So right now, you can see the screen on it, and if I move some faders on the iPad, Deepak sir, can you just move up and down some faders? Right. So you can see that it's happening on my TouchMix screen also. When you have multiple devices connected to it, you can have different access. So the most used case for connecting multiple devices is that one, you have an iPad which the main mix engineer uses, and he has all the controls of the whatever you see on the mixer, including the hard buttons, are given on the soft button. So on the iPad, you can see that on the right hand side you've got all the soft buttons which relates to all the hard buttons which are there on the mixer, including a home page, phantom power, auxiliary, including all the user defined buttons also. You can see that one of the user defined button on the bottommost corner is blinking, which is on the mixer also. You can see this U4 fourth user button blinking, which means actually it's blinking because it is connected. It is assigned to a tap tempo function of a delay FX processor, and that's why it's blinking. So you can see that they are blinking on iPad as well as on the mixer user button as well. So as I said, so Mix Engineer has the full control on the iPad, which also you can toggle. But apart from that, the artists on stage can have their own iPhones connected to the same Wi-Fi, and you can restrict controls for them so that they don't fiddle around with the output of your main PA system or any other artist's mix. So how do you do that is go to the main menu, go to remote control, and then here you will see a list of devices which is connected to the same network. So here I have got Deepak's iPad showing. So I can include that. Now here it says full access or personal monitoring mix, and which you can toggle between, and you also have the security settings. So if I disable the security settings, the security settings will be disabled on the iPad. But if I change from full access to personal monitoring system, then I can select what individual controls I want to give. So let me deselect everything except auxiliary 1. So let's say this unit belongs to an artist who's using the stage monitor connected on auxiliary 1, and we want to give him access only for the auxiliary output of his monitor. So once I make those changes, I save and I say yes, and on the iPad it will show that you're connected and you've got certain access. So now you can see that on the iPad you have a control of only auxiliary 1. Uh, the rest of the main mix and rest of the auxiliary outputs are grayed out. So if the person who's having this device will not be able to control. Let me assign also maybe a user button on that particular device. So when I enable that and click save, again you will, sorry, I have to select the device, then enable the user button and save it. So I say yes to this, and then you get a notification on the device that you have been given access. So now he'll be able to use the user buttons as well. So this way, basically on all your devices, you can have multiple devices. You can keep all of them uh, connected and have different levels of access. Let me give Deepak sir full access. Yeah. So same way you can connect multiple devices. Artist one using his phone to control his monitor mix of his own stage monitor. Artist two using auxiliary to connect it to his, and you are giving different accesses. Um, one thing that works with an iPad is also that if the mix engineer is working on the desk itself without moving around, you can have your iPad keep kept next to your mixer, and then you can have something known as a follow mixer option. Sir, could you pass on the iPad? Yeah. It's already shared, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't have follow. I think the security settings changed. Maybe you need to give me access for follow. Okay, I'll figure that out.
Okay. So there is a follow mixer option on the iPad. So what happens is that you can keep that iPad next to your mixer. There is a rack mount a bracket available on which you can keep your iPad. And what happens is that on your main screen, you still have your channel fader version. And then on the iPad, what you see is actually this window, which is your that particular channel's EQ, compressor, overview, all those kind of things. So basically, it's like having two different screens at the same time. Can we also try adding another iPhone? It's unlocked. Okay. So I have a iPhone here, and then I do the same thing. I go to settings, I go to Wi-Fi. I'm connected to the same Wi-Fi app, which is on the mixer is also on, and then I open the TouchMix 30 app, and then I have this on my screen. So on the right hand side, it says link, which means it is connected to the TouchMix 30 Pro. And then let me see the controls that we have on this. remote control. This is Prakash's iPhone. So he has access only to auxiliary 1. So it's not very clear, but here I say when I select the output, it has only option of auxiliary 1. I don't have multiple options. But if I can enable auxiliary 2, let's say, and save it, then I get a notification here. It says that auxiliary 2 also has been enabled. And then when I select here, I can select auxiliary 2 also. Anything that is not given access has been disabled really. It will show as grayed out and you'll not be able to do that. On the iPad, you can see the so the follow mixer button is there on the iPad, which you can have dual screen with. Okay, the screen is off now. Yeah, sharing screen is off. Okay, no, that's fine. Let's have a look at the recording functions of the TouchMix mixer now. So TouchMix 30 Pro lets you record stereo or multi-track recording done either on the hard drive or a USB pen drive, or it also supports recording on a DAW software through a USB connectivity. So it basically works as a 32 by 32 channel audio interface the moment you connect it through a USB on your laptop. And TouchMix 8 and 16 also supports stereo and multi-track recording on a hard drive, but not on the PC. So TouchMix 30 Pro has that additional feature of working it as an audio interface for DAW software recordings. So how do we do that? First of all, you have all your inputs connected just like how you would have in your live setup, or we're talking about recording your live sessions also. So you have all your channels connected. Now when you hit the record and play button here, it takes you to a recording in playback page where there is a button called record mode. So if you click on it, you get 3 different options. One is stereo MP3 USB drive playback. So if you select that, your screen changes where you have some of the all the MP3 files which is loaded into a pen drive. So I have a USB stick connected on which there are some tracks. So this becomes like a 2-track playback from the USB, and I have all the play button controls here. And how I play back, how I get it into the mix is that you go to the inputs where you say stereo track in, and this 2-track PB, which stands for playback, is what I have to assign in the main mix all or auxiliary wherever, just like any other input channel. So that becomes a stereo MP3 player from the mixer through the USB drive. And if I have to record it, all I have to do is whatever is going into your master automatically goes into the recording software. So I'm in the recording mode, which is stereo MP3. So all I have to do is start the recording button and it will record through this. So the level of recording is defined by this. So there is it shows as a 2-track record fader. So you can, whatever is going into the master is automatically goes to this channel, but you can decide how much level you want to record it at. Typically unity gain would work the best way. If you go to record mode again, it shows a multi-track USB drive. So the moment you change it, we are now talking about multi-track recording in it. So what it means is that it will record each and every individual input tracks on a hard drive as separate tracks. And then you can have that as a dry recording so that you can take that again back to a studio environment. You can play back through the TouchMix again as a playback, and you can do a mixing, or you can also export it into a DAW and do the editing and mixing on the DAW software also. So let's see how that works. So I have a pen drive connected where I have multiple tracks, one particular session with multiple tracks. So what I need to do is I go to the record setup page, and here it will show me the list of sessions which I've already created. So basically there is a collection of there is a song which has been recorded and stored on this pen drive which has 24 tracks, and it is saved as a session with these names, that is a brown bottle of you. So it shows you, and if you want to recall it, you hit the select the session hit the recall button, say yes, and you go back to main page. So it will shows here, it says that USB session with that same name. And now I have to track all the tracks that is from 1 to 24, which if I have to play it back from the hard drive. The recording procedure is exactly the same. When you're in the multi-track recording mode, all you have to do is arm all the channels. So if I'm arm whatever number of channels I have to record, I just go to all the channels, arm them, arm all of them, and then this you can see this record button highlighted. So the moment I hit record, it will start recording all the tracks individually. Um, it will create separate wave files for all the tracks, and you can also punch in something which has to be re-recorded. That's usually not done in live sound, but in studio environment you can. So to fill in for some sort of a mistake, you can punch in a new recording by arming only that particular track, and then you the rest of the track should be in the track mode. Only that particular channel which you want to read up it as should be in the arm mode, and then play it back the whole track. The artist will hear all the other tracks, and then he can start singing the moment that particular timeline comes where he has to read up the audio. So arming the tracks is the way to record it on the hard drive, and then if I have to play it back, all the same recording, then I'll have to track all the channels individually. Now it may be a pain if you have to track all the channels, or if you have to arm all the channels. It's a pain to kind of touch the track on each and every channel by going through multiple pages. So instead, what you can do to make things easier is that go to user button, and here I have used user button 1, and I can select between all these options. So I go to recording, I go to do for all tracks here, and then I have an option to arm or mic oblique track. So I have selected mic oblique track. So what happens is that the user button functions as a track on and off on each and every channel. So I'm in the recording page right now. If I press U1 once, all the tracks have been, all the channels have been gone into the track mode. And if I toggle it off again, it has gone out of the track. Similarly, I can also, let's say I use the other user button to arm the track, all the tracks. So what I can do is go to go to user buttons, select the fourth button, and then again I go to recording. I go to do it all for all tracks, and then record toggle arm. So I can assign it. Make sure that when you assign it, it changes here the name, because right now when I'm touching these options, it is not yet taken the input. It is still on the previous control. So only when you assign it and confirm it, then you will see a change here, and that's how you ensure that it has been done. So now if I press the U4 button, all the tracks get armed automatically. So that's a quick way to toggle between that. So there is a recording session on the pen drive. So if I press track, it is playing all the tracks, and I can hit. I can go to the beginning, play. So you can see that all individual tracks from the hard drive is playing back, which was recorded in the similar fashion. It was actually recorded on a TouchMix 30 Pro. So that's the multi-track recording feature of TouchMix 30 Pro. Now let's also look at how you can do the same recording on the DAW software. So doing that has its own advantages. So you can use a DAW software to record a live session and then take it to a studio and then mix it. There are two ways of mixing. You can either mix it on the DAW and use your TouchMix as a monitor controller where your monitor outputs are connected, or you can do the dry recording on the DAW, but you will also be able to play back all the tracks again back into the mixer, and you can use the mixing feature of the TouchMix to mix it, and you can mix the stereo output, final output again back to your DAW also. So basically the mix down output for that. So what do we need to do for that is I have a USB A to B cable connected to one of the USB ports on my laptop. I go to record play option. Let me stop this playback. I go to record option, I go back to record mode, and then there is a third option which says multi-track DAW. So the moment I select that, now you will see some changes in the track. So I still have all my multiple tracks, but now there is no record arm button. There is only a track button on each and every channel. There is an indication at the bottom for all 32 channels, which will, these are like LEDs that will blink the moment you have established a connection and you're playing back some audios in it. So it will show you which all channels are receiving or sending audio. The DAW option here also says when it is playing something, it will show that, it will say that receiving audio, otherwise it will not. And the sample rate, as I said earlier, is one of the important things. So if your session is on, whether it's on 44.1 or 48, you got to have the same settings here also, so that it works in sync with the clock of your DAW software. So now that I'm in the DAW recording mode, let me also share my screen. All right. So I have a DAW software called Reaper here just to show you. So all the DAW softwares work pretty much in a similar way. It's just that the different kind of settings may be in different locations and within that software, but the concept applies to all the DAW software and same. Essentially, what it does is that when the moment you connect your TouchMix 30 Pro to your PC, first of all, you got to go to the QSC website on TouchMix 30 page, and you have to download a Windows USB driver, and you install that on your PC, and then you connect your TouchMix 30 Pro. So TouchMix 30 Pro as an audio interface, it uses ASIO drivers. So you could that Windows driver which is downloadable from the website works as an ASIO driver for the TouchMix 30 Pro. If you're connecting on Mac, you don't need to install anything. It works on the core audio drivers, which is already there in Mac by default. So no need of installing any drivers as such. So you can connect to Windows or Mac both. And once you connect, it basically establishes an interface. It works as a 32 by 32 channel audio interface. So when I say 32 means it would include all these mic line inputs, which is up to 24. Then you've got stereo tracks, and then there is a 2-track playback if you're receiving audio from the DAW software, or the 2-track recording if you're sending stereo track from your TouchMix to the DAW software. So if I look at the audio device on my PC, it will show as TouchMix 30 Pro. I have this session open for the same recording that we just heard. Before going into DAW software, I'll just quickly show you that we also have a DAW utility software. Yeah. So if you have done a recording on your hard drive and then you want to export into your DAW software, or if you have done a recording on your DAW software, it is possible to convert them into a hard drive recording so that you can carry it anywhere. So for that, this particular software called TouchMix to DAW, the DAW utility software, you can download and install this. And in this, you will see two windows. One is TouchMix to DAW, which means if you have done a recording on your hard drive, you can convert those tracks into DAW session, or vice versa. If you've done your recording on your DAW software, then you can convert into a TouchMix session, which means it will create a folder in such a way that it is readable on a hard drive directly on the TouchMix 30 Pro. So that is one thing. Now going back to DAW, so I have a session open here with 24 tracks. So it's pretty much simple. All you have to look at is the DAW's audio interface settings. So in this particular software, it is in the options, and you go to preferences. And here you select the ASIO driver first, and then you've got your all the devices listed. So I have a TouchMix 30 Pro listed here. So the moment I select, I have all the settings related to that. So there is an option to select whether how many channels you want to use. Obviously, typically you would keep it all to 32 in the input as well as output range. You can select the sampling rate frequency, so make sure that it is same for on both the devices, and then you hit OK, so it will work. Now, another thing that you need to do is the right routing of it. So in your DAW software, there will be a routing option, because you have certain set of tracks in your session, and you have a number of tracks which is working as an audio interface in terms of inputs and outputs. So you got to do the right routing when you want to achieve this. So in this particular software, if I go to view and do routing matrix, or I can do Alt R, and I have this particular routing option open. So here what I can see is that there are tracks which is loaded onto the session as input and as an output, and it also shows you the audio interface TouchMix, all your inputs and outputs up to 32. So here I can see all my inputs from TouchMix 30 Pro, that is 32 channels, and then on the output also I can see all output 1 to 32 again on the TouchMix 30 Pro, and these are the tracks. So what you got to do is, if you want to play back, if you're doing the recording first, you have to arm with these red buttons. You make sure that all your inputs are going to a particular track on your DAW software. So you make a selection like this, so that each and every individual input from the mixer is going to a particular channel on your DAW software. So, and then you just go to your channels and arm all the channels that you want to record, and hit record. So you will be able to record that. Once you finish the recording and you want to play back those channels back into your TouchMix, which is connected to your studio monitors or speakers, whatever speakers you have, then you also got to look at the routing options, where you're sending all your tracks to the output. So here I have all my tracks listed. That is 24 tracks of channels, each different instruments, and then I have the output. So 1 to 32 output, I'm using only 24, so I would route all my 24 channels individually to individual outputs. So since I have already routed this, if I do a playback, so again I need to go to track mode in this. One thing to notice is that here you have a track option. So if it is not on, it would still take the input from the actual physical input that you've connected. So if you have a band connected, then you get that. But if you have to play back something from your DAW, then you're gonna again enable all the tracks, individual tracks on it. Again, I have a user button defined for it, so I can do that quickly. So I just press that user button and all tracks are enabled. So now if I play something from my DAW software, I will be able to hear it. So if I have to stop it, I just toggle the track buttons, the user button one, which has disabled the track option. So now I'm not receiving any audio from that. But you can see the LED is blinking, which means it is transmitting something into the TouchMix 30 Pro. So that's about it. The advantage of this is, again, that you can either record multi-track on a hard drive connected to it, or if you have a DAW, and you can converse between the two. So if you have done the recording on a hard drive, you can convert into a DAW session, or if you have it on a DAW session, you can convert it to hard drive. In both ways, you can mix it either on the DAW or on your TouchMix also. So TouchMix also has all these a lot of great sounding equalizations, effects, and all that. It also has a lot of presets. So in DAW, you may not find these input presets based on the instrument. So in TouchMix 30 Pro, we've got these presets like this one preset. If I go to the preset section, I have it for, let's say I select drums, I have kick or a snare or a overhead, whatever. So basically, you can use these features to have a mix, because these presets will give you a basic equalization which is more suited for those particular instrument which is on that particular channel. So equalization, sometimes compressor, sometimes gate, all of those things. The best recommended one, it won't tune your instrument right then and there, but at least 80% of your job is done if you use these presets. Essentially, it becomes a good starting point, and then you can do a final EQ again on it to improve things. So that's about it. So you can mix it on either on a DAW software or on a TouchMix using these EQs. You can use the effects also, which are like great sounding effects available on this. There are 6 different effects engines available. So how you do that is simply that when you're recording, then all individual tracks are going to your DAW software. When you're playing back from that by enabling the track buttons, basically when it is playing back, you have your monitors connected, and on the input channel here, it will you can assign this 2-track record buttons to your DAW, so that you can send the mix down to an additional track. So what you need to do for that is that apart from your individual input channels, you have to add an additional stereo track and route it in such a way that after this 30 channels which you see here, that is 24 mic line inputs and 3 stereo inputs, the 31 and 32 track for recording becomes the 2-track recording fader, and for playback, 31 and 32 channel becomes the 2-track playback channel. So when you're playing back from the DAW, this is your 31 and 32. So in your DAW router, you would use the channel 31 and 32. Let's say here I'm using it for recording or whatever. Similarly for the playback also. So that's what we have for today.
We have a few questions. From an anonymous attendee, I'm not sure whether all of them are from one single person or different. The first question is there an option to log the TouchMix recorded file so it is protected from unauthorized editing?
Not really, because the recording that you're doing is on a different media. So you're not recording on the TouchMix itself, you're recording it either on a hard drive or a pen drive, or you're recording it on a DAW software, which is a removable drive. So you cannot really have something like that to kind of lock the recording sessions as such.
But you can lock the window,
Yeah.
the folder, so to say,
Yeah,
depending on
lock
the
the
security on the drive.
Yeah, so once you have the recording sessions on your drive, you can connect it to a PC and you can lock the folder itself.
Just like every other files we do.
Yes.
24-bit recording, is that possible?
No, the mixer supports up 16-bit only, which works most of the time.
Right. Next
Having
question.
said that, actually the mixer has a Class A mic preamp, which is really high quality mic preamps used in studios. So that is what is more important rather than just the conversion bit of it. So of course 24-bit is a higher resolution, but since you have a very good quality mic preamp, it's not really needed.
Right. Next question is restriction on number of effects or compressor, etc. before the DSP runs out of power.
All right. So on each and every input, the processing that you see, there is a 5-band, 4-band parametric EQ with high and low shelving. There is a compressor, there is a gate. So this is available on each and every input. So if you're using all of it at once also, nothing would happen. It will still work very well. Similarly, on the outputs also, you've got a set of parametric EQ, which is a 6-band parametric EQ, high pass, low pass filters, graphic EQ, and most importantly, anti-feedback is also available. And even if you're using all of them at once, it just won't break. It just still would work fine. So there is no question of really any sort of processing power as such.
The next question is, what is the maximum delay from in to out?
Okay, let's look at that actually. So if I go to an input, I go to setup. So this is the delay I have on the input. Oh, did we mean the delay, the navigation delay? So I think I'll need to check that. Do we know?
So that would actually depend on how much processing you add. It could vary, because if you include a compressor, you include a gate, that adds to a delay approximately. But generally, as we see, a compressor would add about 1 millisecond delay, a gate would add another millisecond delay. So, but on the total, we should not be exceeding more than 10 milliseconds.
Yeah, but also I assume that since this product is actually meant for live performance, also the delay anyway would be within the acceptable ranges. It wouldn't really cause an issue.
He meant navigation delay with so many DSPs.
Yeah, that's what we spoke about.
All right. That's all we have.
Okay, so that's all we have for now. We have our next webinar on our next Wednesday, which
That's
is
right.
on the system designing concept on like audio system designing concept. Yesterday we had a webinar on the audio basics of installed sound. So as an extension to that, next week's webinar is all about how to design a system using simulation softwares like Ease Focus and Ease Address, and some do's and don'ts about the connectivity and stuff like that. We also you can feel free to contact me or Prakash for support. And
Also, if they have any topic for webinar, the email ID is just bottom of the screen, webinars.india@qsc.com.
Right. So you see email address on the TouchMix bottom of the screen, which is webinars.india@qsc.com. So if you have any specific requirements, like if you have any topics you would like us to cover in terms of all the QSC products or even generic things, feel free to email us on that email address, and we will be able to
Address that.
Address that, right? And there is, if you go to training.qsc website, there are a lot of trainings, including one full trainings dedicated for TouchMix mixers, as well as other live sound products as well. And we also have something known as a QSC self-help portal. You go to qsc.com, go to support, and there is a link called self-help portal where you will find a lot of options. If you are stuck anywhere,
you can share your screen right now.
Yeah.
Also, before that, there is one question from an anonymous attendee.
Okay.
What is unity gain on the TouchMix -12 or -16 dB?
Unity gain is more of a conceptual thing. So when we say unity gain, it means if you're talking about the fader level, then we obviously look at zero, maintaining a 0 dB on the input and the output side. Achieving the unity gain in terms of input levels is basically that when you adjust the gain structures, gain of the mic line input, we maintain that on the input you will see the input levels like this. So our target should be to achieve 0 dB. It can fluctuate a little bit in and out, but it also, the indicator obviously shows green in color when you're in safe levels, and it goes to orange, which is fine, but it should not go to red, which is the clipping point of the input. So unity gain is more of a conceptual thing. You just need to maintain it at every level of your input, output, and all the routings in between.
Sure, thanks. One more question from Kalai Selman. Warping can be done from TouchMix 30 Pro? Can warping?
Something.
I hope there's no typo.
Maybe you might have to repeat the question again.
Yeah.
Kalai, could you rephrase the question? We are having a hard time to understand that. If there was a typo in the question.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we can talk about the self-help portal.
Yeah, so I'm just going to share my screen again. Yeah, so you go to qse.com. I can actually show it to you. So on QSC website, there is a section called support, and there is a link for self-help portal. So when you click on that, you get to this page. So here you will find a lot of topics of discussion or queries related to all the products that we have. So if you go to TouchMix, you will find all the kind of queries which people would have heard earlier, and somebody from QC would have addressed it. You can also search by using the search window, typing in the keywords that you want to ask questions about. Or if you register and log in, you can also create a case. which works in two ways. One is if you have facing any issues with your product, you can reach us by creating a case, or you could also, if you like to add some add some sort of features into the software part of the TouchMix Pro, you can also create a case to have a feature request added to it. We keep updating the firmware of the TouchMix, and with every firmware update, we keep on adding some new features in the TouchMix Pro, because it's a software-based mixer most of the time. Most of the things are software-based in it. So something like a custom bank feature here, or the support for using an external control surface with the mixer also has been very recently added. So it is easy for us to, any software-based feature, it is easy for us to add actually through the software development. So we do look at the top most requested feature request, and we develop them and release them with the next firmware release. Yeah, that's about it. Do we have any more questions?
No. Kalai Selvam, Kalai Selvam is warping generally will do it in any DAW to align the recorded track. Is that possible from TouchMix 30 Pro?
Yes, so actually the DAW utility software, that's exactly what it does. So when you do a recording on the hard drive, when you transfer it to a DAW software, the reason why that particular utility software exists is because otherwise you cannot just copy paste the tracks from your hard drive to your DAW or vice versa, because they don't time align themselves really well. That is why using this software, you can transfer tracks from your hard drive to your DAW software or vice versa.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Kalai, for getting back with your question. Hope this answers your queries.
All right. Thanks all of you for your time. I hope it was a good session, a lot of learning. Looking forward for all of you to join in our next webinar. And keep safe, keep washing your hands.
Take care. Bye.